And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 36 of A Druid's Dozen. Yeah, my name's John. Certain people know me as the Rock Druid. And basically I'm a bit of a radio DJ. I've got a couple of shows. There's the Sunday Rock Show on BCFM Radio in Bristol, here in the UK. And there's the Rock Druid Show on astroradio.earth, the internet music and astronomy station. Anyway, this is basically just a little video that I do once a week where I raid my substantial record collection, just drag out some albums, nearly always at random, wave me in front of the camera, just talk about them for a couple of minutes to share my love of music and, have some interesting discussions about them. So, without further ado, I shall pass straight in with today's first offering. And it's this is Batfish Brew by the Batfish Boys, or just Batfish as they were known at this point. There's the front, there's the back, GWR Records, 1988 this one. And no, there's no in the sleeve or out on this. Now, Batfish Boys, one of those bands that they were kind of quite hot property at the time when this album came out, and sort of like, during their kind of brief highlight of sort of pseudo kind of culty fame back in the late 1980s. They had a string of albums out. They were quite popular, picked up a load of radio airplay. I saw them live down at the Fleece and Perkin in Bristol there. Just a really good band, kind of old school rock band. But these days, tend to be a bit overlooked, which is a criminal shame because they were a pretty damn fine outfit. This was their final studio album, released about a year before the band ceased to exist. And so Batfish Boys are a band that had an overall fairly high quality. This album's just as good as their earlier stuff. Well, they kind of sound like a kind of punky, hard rock, psychedelia kind of bluesy country kind of mashup. Very, very interesting sound. Something that, kind of, not saying they're completely unique, but they're quite rare in their kind of genre crossing. It's like this album, their final one, maybe got a little bit more polish than some of their earlier releases, but still pretty good. The opening cut, Velcro Breach, is a bit of a classic, as is the closer, Super Slab. If you don't know, Super Slab was CB term for a radio back in the 80s. Yeah, 10-4 for a copy, Rubber Duck, Good Buddy, etc. Highlights, Put Me Back Together Again, Salvation, $1, Sister Jane. All really good stuff. Like I said, I saw them live about a year or so before this album came out. Just a really impressive outfit. And a band that's sadly missed. And if there was one that could do with a kind of 1 or 3 formation, just for the hell of it, Batfish Boys are it. But anyway, the today's first one, Batfish Boys, with Batfish Brew from 1988. Okay, here we are, first CD of the day. This is Aged in Oak by the Sons of Liberty from 2018, I think this first one was. Doesn't actually say, but I will stick my head in the line and go 2018. Yeah, it's a really nicely packaged for a CD from a local kind of up-and-coming band. There's the front, and there's the back with the Sons of Liberty doing Sons of Liberty type things. And then you've got this kind of almost like a record inner sleeve. You've got there, which is their kind of Southern Rockers logo. And a really nice thanks list on the back there. Now, Sons of Liberty, they're out of the kind of Bristol, Somerset area with members coming over from South Wales as well. They're a kind of, well, they're not kind of, they are very Lynyrd Skynyrd. These guys are Britain's probably best southern rock band. This is Southwestern Boogie extraordinaire. They're kind of 5 kind of veteran musicians, all of which have been around on the scene. I think Rob Cooksley was in, I'm telling you, he was in Cougar, or Kelson, one of those little Welsh metal bands back in the 80s. Fred Hale, ex-member of Bristol band Dangerous Bruce, has been around on the local scene for a long time, as have the rest. Just well-established kind of guys, all kind of really talented blokes in their own right, coming together to lay down some good old boy down home yeehaw raising whiskey sodden southern boogie. This is a 6-track mini album. That's their first release. Since this, they've got another album and a full-length album, another EP coming out, with apparently a new studio album due out 2021. COVID virus and lockdowns permitting. But anyway, as a debut, this is really strong. I mean, the opening cut, if it ain't southern, something that Molly Hatchet could have recorded in their heyday, lays out the band's kind of raison d'etre right from the start. My favourite cut on here, Damned If You Do, you know, kind of a sort of like bit of a kind of rocker. Then you know, Disky Wicks is a pretty good track. Then you got these spine-tingling My Sister, a song written by Rob Cooksley, about the death of his sister. It's one of those kind of, not kind of ballady, it's quite moving, but it's still quite moving, and a kind of powerful, heartfelt song with a really emotional delivery that brings a lump to my throat every time I hear it. That's who I am, and moving on, just round out the album brilliantly. So definitely still much an ongoing concern, definitely a band on the up, and prove that you're never told to rock and roll too young to die. So yeah, Sons of Liberty, Aged in Oak, from around about 2018, 2017, something like that. Damn fine release, yeehaw. And if you're into your Southern Boogie, go get, and the other stuff as well. You will love it. Okay, next up, something a bit, well, they're different, but it's a genre I don't think I've shown on this on these videos yet. There's the front. This is Amos Milburn's Greatest Hits from 1988, but so it's a compilation. I'll explain. And if you haven't heard who Amos Milburn is, there's the front. There's the back. I'm not all that surprised. I think I'm a sort of believer in the theory that every musician and music fan should have their own favourite fairly obscure blues man. Here's mine. Now, I came across Amos Milburn completely out of the blue. Many years ago, I used to live up in the Redland area of Bristol, and there was a pub up there called the Highbury Vaults, and they used to, every Sunday night, have a kind of blues and jazz disco. Old bloke used to come along with a mobile disco unit and play some classic blues and jazz, and you know, I was hanging out with a load of hippies and punks, but we used to go down there anyway because it was a great atmosphere and really cool chilled out music for a quiet pint on a Sunday evening. Well, one day we're sitting there, the guy's spinning his discs as normally. He plays a track called One Scotch, One Bourbon, One Beer, which first time I'd ever heard the song, and there was a case of went up to him and said, bloody hell, that's a great track, who's it by? Oh, it said Amos Milburn. So he told me a few details, and the following morning, that was on the Sunday night, by Monday morning I was out scouring local record shops trying to find some music by him. Couldn't, had to go to Virgin Records in Bristol and order this, and it's one of the only things available. Now, Amos Milburn, guy where was he? Born in Chicago, no, Houston in Texas, sorry, in way back in the early 1920s. Dabbled a little bit in kind of, played piano at church kind of thing. At the age of 15, he left school and joined the US Navy. Ended up seeing active service at the end of the Second World War, and kind of eventually got retired. He got 13 naval battle stars, serving in battles like Guadalcanal and Truk and around the Philippines. This guy was a kind of a bit of a war hero. Returned to kind of the US, got demobbed, met this girl, settled in San Antonio in Canada. San Antonio in Texas. And, he had sort of learnt a bit of piano, he had picked up a bit more in the Navy, and started playing his own kind of jump blues piano around various venues around Texas, etc. And eventually kind of got kind of sort of like, what was it? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the bloke's name, but he actually got discovered by a local kind of promoter and record label owner who packed him off to Los Angeles to record a load of music. This is 1947, November. He cut, I think it was about 13 or 14 sides they used to do it over the course of a week or two. The first one, which came out as a 12-inch single, was a track called Hold Me Baby, with a track with 78, sorry, with a track called Chicken Shack Boogie on the other side. Now, Chicken Shack Boogie, this is the days of kind of segregated everything in the US, including radio stations, picked up a lot of airplay on the black stations, and was reviewed in one magazine saying the rock and roll sound of Amos Milburn. Rock and roll in 1947, before rock and roll had been invented, effectively, a good 8-10 years before Elvis, etc., and all the early rock and rollers. This guy, and if you listen to this stuff, this is rock and roll. It may be called jump blues, but this is rock and roll, proper rock and roll. There's 16 tracks on here. Some of the A sides, some of the, because they're A's, double A's, etc. And the most recent one, which was it? Yeah, one Scotch, one bourbon, one beer, 1953. And it's all really good stuff. The recording quality, you're looking at recording from the 1940s, so it may not be sort of like, exactly high fidelity, and especially kind of low budget recording studios. But, this guy can rock. This guy can do the blues. This guy can be brilliant. He's got a tongue-in-cheek, he writes his own material, he's got a tongue-in-cheek humour. Things like the Jelly Roll Blues, where he gets out his jelly roll to scare his missus back to life. Jelly roll being a euphemism for penis, of course. Let's make Christmas merry, baby, which is about they're too poor to have a Christmas party, so let's spend Christmas Day in bed. It's kind of, it's tongue in cheek, it's in your face. This is mummy baiting before mummy baiting was invented. Sadly, by the Amos Milburn was one of these guys that didn't kind of transition well into rock and roll. In the late 1950s, early 60s, he put out an album called, what was it called? We Teenagers Know What We Want. However, you're looking at someone that was in his 40s at the time, or coming up to his late 30s, early 40s, and I know that some of you know, rock and rollers were pushing on a bit even then, but it never really. The album was not. I've heard it. The album is not particularly good, and you know, he kind of health problems, and that led to his retirement in from sort of late 60s onwards. Very few live performances, no recordings after that. Sadly died, complications following an operation in 1980. But you know, the guy has left behind an amazing. This album here, I've only 16 tracks on this album, and I've heard a few other bits and pieces by him as well, of absolute brilliance, proto rock and roll. You can see how this guy was a massive influence on people like Little Richards and Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah, so my favourite jump blues man, Amos Milburn, rock and roll primordial genius. Yeah, this is his greatest hits compilation from 1988. Other recordings are available. Okay, next up, come back to one of my all-time favourite bands. There's the front. This is Crush Street Kids, 2011's Sweet Creatures. There's the front. There's the back. Open it up. There's behind the disc. There is the disc. Pop this out. There's the Crush Street Kids themselves. Lovely bunch of blokes. Met a couple of them. Spoke to the rest online. Then you got lyrics. More lyrics. And thanks list, and what I'm really chuffed, thanks list and credits, and what really makes me chuffed is it says here on the thanks list, I mentioned on the second line there, directly below Alice Cooper. Yeah, I've been they gave me a kind of bit of a kind of thanks on the album because I gave them a lot of airplay because I do love the band, and it's, you know, I didn't have to, but I feel really chuffed that they do. Immortality is mine. No, Crush Street Kids. I have mentioned them on a couple of times on these videos in the past. Band out of Arizona, over there in the US of A. It's Phoenix, I think they're from, and they're kind of old school retro classic rockers. Done. Did their first album, Let's Rock and Roll Tonight, around about 2005, which led to, that was the first of a kind of concept trilogy album. Tell a story about a kid that travels through time from the distant future to experience life as a 70s rock and roll star, and leads to a kind of twisted story, but in a good way. Convoluted tale, and he ends up kind of meeting his fate one night in Berlin. Brilliant stuff. After that, they did a double live album, digital only release, never had a physical pressing, but it is a classic style double live album. And then to date, this is their last album they released to date, so Sweet Creatures. Let's point out there if you can see that there, fully autographed as well. Now, this album is another concept work. Stands alone, although they have left a kind of couple of sort of like open ends so that it could be expanded at some point. It's a story of a couple of teenage runaways on the mean streets of America, encountering sort of sex and drugs and prostitution and crime and the kind of general kind of underbelly of any society anywhere in the world that can kind of draw youth in, chew them up and spit them out again. And it's these two creatures, these sweet creatures, the two kids, their fall from grace, absolutely storming record. It's a lot darker than the Kid trilogy, the first 3 albums. There's a kind of a certain brooding menace on here. I mean, tracks like I Become Death and Third Avenue Vampires, Bad Yeah Bad, Harlot of the Flies, they're kind of still got that kind of Crush Street Kids kind of 70s rock saluting genius that is the Crush Street Kids' sound, but underpinned by a darkness that kind of gives it a whole new dimension. Just an amazing piece of work. The guys on here are fine form, much praise to especially to Wadey Adams on the drums. Well, the rest of them all did brilliant, but the drumming on here is particularly fine. And you know, and it's just ain't heard be believed. I mean, it's I think it's one of the biggest crimes in music that the Crush Street Kids never got huge superstar status. And I'm sure had they been around 20 years earlier, and these come through in the 80s instead of the 2000s, these would be household names and touring stadiums. But you know, sadly, you know, being absolutely amazing is no guarantee of success. Like I said, the band never officially broke up. They've been on hiatus for about 10 years now. There's one of the guys had a few medical problems. There's been people taking time out to do the family thing. You know, they've all been working session work with various people. And like I said, when I can't remember the guy's name, but Ryan and AD, the vocalist and the drummer and rhythm guitarist, so they came over, guitarist and drummer, they came over here and to Britain the other year with sort of playing session for some blues guy. So I met up with them and had an amazing evening out. And we will do it again at some point. But you know, they were telling me, Len, that there are more Crush Street Kids material available. There is the possibility at some point, if they can get the original lineup back together, and they'll only do it with the original lineup, of maybe exploring the story of the Sweet Creatures more. Or they did also point out that there's outtakes and unreleased material they've still got knocking around, that they may, if they get chance to, sort of put it out as a kind of retrospective kind of outtakes album. I'm waiting, guys, hint hint. But anyway, regardless of what they do in the future, they have left behind 3 great studio albums and a cracking live album, and I recommend a lot to you, especially this one. This is Sweet Creatures 2011, Crush Street Kids. Brilliant. Okay, next up we'll have something a bit obscure. Actually, next 2 are going to be a bit obscure. We'll kick off with this one. This is Graves of God by Waxface, 12-inch EP. There's the front. There's the back, and I'll zoom that in so you can see Waxface in person with the I don't know who he is, but he's got a sinister face and some very stripy trousers. Yeah. Waxface, this is the only thing that this band ever released. I've been searching the net, and information on these guys is thin, to say the least. Even the great sort of like Encyclopedia Metallica just mentions this album. No demos, nothing else. You know, even people archive more. This on Mausoleum Records, the German label, the Dutch label, but even their archives that just mentioned this album and the catalogue number and other details. So all I can turn around and say is for definite, these guys came from Belgium. They were formed around about 1984, released this and broke up 2 years later. That's all the information I know. And the fact that it's Frank Castlewaltz on guitar, Manhattan on drums, Phil Bertrand on lead guitar, and Didier Krusk on bass. Yeah, that's it. But this album, I picked this up, deletion track, Virgin Records, or was it HMV Records, or some records, many years ago. It had a 50p sticker on it, and I thought, oh, that looks a bit metal, I'll give it a go. And it's not bad. It's not going to win any awards for originality. It's not exactly earth-shatteringly brilliant, but as far as an example of kind of early European thrash metal, it's got a lot to say for itself. Only 4 tracks. The title cut, Graves of God, probably the strongest track on here. Really hard rhythm guitar, kind of, really fast, sort of like early Slayer type pacing. Slow it down a bit for Night Killers. Got a bit of a kind of more of a kind of Metallica kind of half-speed thrash vibe to it. Are you ready for a ride? An absolute breakneck dive into speed metal. Final track, Dress to Kill. Probably the most forgettable track on here, but still not bad. Yeah. If you want to track this down, this is never, as far as I'm aware, it's never had a reissue, never had a CD release, and I've never even seen a digital copy, so you may be reduced to combing second-hand record shops and record fairs and auction sites, etc. to find it. But, if you're into collecting, early European thrash, and just some pretty good overall, sort of unknown metal in general, this one, it's worth checking out. It goes on eBay for about 40-50 quid. I wouldn't pay that much for it, but if you're heavily into collecting, well, so it's worth a tenner or so. But anyway, Waxface, Graves of God, 1985. Okay, another CD type, and something a bit more obscure, but a bit more up to date. This is Stone Mask by Stone Mask from 2008. There's the front. There's the back. And there's the disc. There's some very minimalist information, just gives you the basics. And this is just one of those lyrics. Now, Stone Mask are another band that are kind of a bit like Waxface. These guys are bound for rock and roll obscurity. I say they're out of Quakertown, Pennsylvania, over there in the US, and as far as I'm aware, this is the only thing they ever released. I can find no other information about them. Their web presence is basically zero. And as far as all the information is concerned, and I had to kind of dig up the archives of some local newspaper from the Pennsylvania just to find a very brief article in that said periodicals music listings about this lot. All I know is that they are based around Steve Gajewski, who's the drummer who played with some other band who I forget who they were, and basically he had this idea of kind of wanted to do something sort of a bit classic rock, and he had some songs he wrote, so he dragged in some mates, did this as a one-off. I believe they did at least one gig, because the article in said paper mentioned an album launch show, but beyond that I don't know. And it's a shame, because this is an 11-track album that has got some damn fine material on it. It's very much classic rock. It's very much in the kind of sort of vein of Zeppelin, Free, Bad Company, maybe early Aerosmith kind of thing. Definitely got a lot to go for it. It's fairly well played. Production is competent. It's not going to win kind of any awards for being kind of the greatest production ever, but you know, it's well mixed. You can hear everything. It's nicely mastered. The songwriting's pretty good. You know, Surge, She Let It Go, Full Circle, The Calling. They're all tracks that kind of, you know, because I spanned this earlier before I started recording it. All tracks that jump out at you and go, yeah, we're pretty good songs. Check us out. And then the band are gone. So I will recommend that you check this out if you can find a copy. Again, Lord knows where you're going to get one from. Although there are some tracks available on things like YouTube, and I think there's some up on Last FM. Is it Last FM? Not Last FM. What's the radio? What's the website? Something FM. Not music. Pre-Bandcamp music streaming site kind of thing. I think there's tracks up on there. There's definitely a few tracks up on YouTube, and a couple of tracks are on Spotify. Beyond that, the Lord knows where you're going to get a copy of this. But you know, if you're into kind of, you know, piques your interest, because it is a well worth a listen. You know, set yourself a task, try and track down and have a listen for yourself. Yeah, Stone Mask by Stone Mask from 2008. Damn obscure. Okay, next up we got another CD from a bloke that I'll admit is a bit of a musical hero of mine. There's the front. This is Alan Clayson and the Arganauts. This Cannot Go On from... I'm trying to think when this one came out. I want to say 2017, but I may be completely wrong on this. It doesn't say, but no, it doesn't say at all. But anyway, Alan Clayson, bit of a legend on the British underground music scene. Probably best known as a music journalist and as a author, written kind of the seminal biographies on people like Paul McCartney, various members of Led Zeppelin, various members of The Who, David Bowie, etc. Highly respected music critic and author, but since the late 1970s has had his own band, the Arganauts, and they are kind of a very kind of eclectic outfit. They're punk, but only in attitude and outlook, not in music. They're kind of rock and roll. It's kind of Bowie-esque in places, but not. It's you know, it's just an interesting. You know, it kind of got that kind of Wild Willie Barrett vibe to it. It's got elements of John Otway. Just a eclectic blend of sort of Lou Reed in places almost. Alan Clayton got a distinctive voice and a fantastic lyricist and songwriter. Can turn a phrase like a good chef can turn a burger. He can just flip them out left, right, and centre. He's working with a so this is one of his most recent albums. Working with a cracking band. Well, what's the guy's name? Pete Cox, the guitarist, great player, and Andy Lavery, the keyboard player. Shit hot stuff. There's short tracks in it. without really kind of listening to the stuff, it's hard to put an angle on where the guy's coming from. And I ain't going to start spinning stuff on here because copyright strikes, etc. But Google Alan Clayson. Google this album, This Cannot Go On, and you'll hear some bits for yourself. Tracks like Looking for Monday, Teenage Runaway, a superb kind of story, Teenage Runaways. Angelette, The Land Waster, which was a re-recording of a track that was a big hit for him in Holland. Young England, oh yeah, I've got Young England, kind of a bit like This Is England by The Clash, given a kind of extra kind of reboot kind of thing, but not in a negative kind of cloning way, as a kind of answer to it. The Refugees, This Time Tomorrow, Lone Cloud, Derry Down Lane. Everything on here is storming. Did I show you the gatefold? Yeah, there's Mr. Clayson himself there. And there's the band. I have the great privilege on 2 occasions now of with Alien Station and supporting Alan Clayson live, and I've seen him about 3 times as well in his own right. Amazing performer, really nice guy as well when you chat to him. Very intelligent, a little bit eccentric, but really nice with it, and a superb musician. And I do hastily recommend that everybody that likes a good tune checks out Alan Clayson and the Arganauts. This Cannot Go On, his most recent album. Good place to start as any, but he hasn't got a great deal of stuff out, but it's all damn fine and worth a listen. Yeah, Alan Clayson and the Arganauts, This Cannot Go On. Okay, next up, we're going to have a bit of Tull, because why not? I love Tull. This is Stormwatch, 1979. There's the front. There is the back with a rampant polar bear exploding out of a giant polar bear exploding out of a glacier to Godzilla-like trash a power station and an oil refinery. And if I pull this out, there's lyrics and credits. Now, just in case you've been living under a rock for the last, well, since about 1968, when Tull first hit the scene, Jethro Tull were and still are, because they're still kind of going under various formations. One of the seminal folky, again, old album, split sleeve. Record's fine, just at least cardboard on the sleeve is falling apart a bit. Got to get my Pritt stick out and re-glue it, you know. Maybe I'll do that after I come off, finish recording. Yeah, but anyway, came out in 1968. Started out as a kind of folky blues band. Embraced prog rock, embraced folk, embraced lots of kind of genres, and still going strong to this day. Late 1970s, they brought out a kind of trilogy of albums. Total Rock and Roll 2, no, after that one, it was Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, then this. Kind of form a little kind of bit of a trilogy of Ian Anderson, the vocalist, kind of, and lyricist, exploring kind of environmental themes. You know, this was before it was trendy to be an environmentalist, I hasten to add. But there again, Mr. Anderson farms fish in Skye, so he's got a vested interest in being clean and environmental. Environmental themes, kind of questioning man's kind of relationship with technology, etc. And yeah, this was the final of the 3. After this, they change of direction. There was A, and then Broadsword and the Beast, which saw them getting off in a bit different direction. But anyway, All those 3 albums, actually most of Jethro Tull's albums are pretty damn good. All those 3 albums are particularly fine. This is, what's that, my favourite of the 3. I won't say it's my favourite of the 3 because that will be Heavy Horses, but this is still a cracking record. From the opening cut, North Sea Oil, there's a touching at Dark Ages, a big kind of sprawling epic of a cut. Warm Sporran, lovely little kind of sweet instrumental. Then you got something opening the second side, tracks like Something's on the Move, The Flying Dutchman, Dark and Brooding Dunringill, and then you've got a track called Elegy, which was written by David Palmer, the keyboard player. Everything else was written by Ian Anderson. David Palmer just does this little nice track called Elegy instrumental, released at the end. Line up on here, Ian Anderson on vocals, flute, acoustic guitar, Martin Barr and plays bass as well. Martin Barr on guitars and mandolins, etc. Barrymore Barlow, sorry, on drums. John Evans on keyboards, and say David Palmer on additional keyboards and synths. An amazing album, one of Tull's best. You know, if you haven't really heard Tull, give them a listen. If you have heard Tull and you like this album, let me know what you think in the comments. But yeah, Jethro Tull, Stormwatch, 1979. And besides, any album that's got a giant polar bear acting like Godzilla can't be bad. Okay, next up, we'll have a bit of another guy that's a bit of a hero of mine on here. This is Foolish Pride by Tony McPhee. There's the front. There's the back, and this album came out 1993. There's a shadowy picture of Tony behind the disc. There is a disc. Pop this out. There's a better view of the front with the great man himself. Fold this out. Lyrics. And back. Now, Tony McPhee, as you probably know, well, if you don't know, I'm going to tell you anyway, founder member and lead guitarist of the legendary blues prog rock band the Groundhogs. Dealt with the Groundhogs on here a couple of times in the past on this on these episodes, and this is Tony McPhee with one of his rare solo outings. Groundhogs, of course, came together in the late mid-60s, early 60s actually, kind of as a pickup band for people like John Lee Hooker and various touring musicians, and went on their own right, had a series of really good albums like Split, Black Diamond and that throughout the 1970s. Still carrying on under the leadership of drummer Ken Bushelnick to this day. Tony McPhee, sadly, health and age has basically forced him into nearly permanent retirement, but which is a shame, but there again, none of us live forever. But anyway, this is his second, and as far as I'm aware, last solo album. I think he only ever did the 2. Does everything himself: guitars, bass, keyboards, even programs the drums, and it's pretty good. It's a bit more bluesy than the Groundhog stuff, a bit more kind of stripped down, kind of classic blues, effectively. Tracks with opening cut took me by surprise. The Devil You Know, Masquerading, On the Run, been there, done that. All fine tracks. Tony McPhee's got a fantastic turn of phrase when it comes to, a bit like Alan Clayson, got a fantastic turn of phrase when it comes to lyric writing. Is a sublime guitarist. I've seen him with the Groundhogs and I've seen him solo. Absolutely a mind-bending player and very kind of minimalistic, and when you meet him, he's a really nice kind of self-affronting, chilled out guy as well. I say, if you want to hear Tony McPhee at his best, just get the Groundhog stuff. If you want to hear him at his most introspective and kind of rawest, his solo stuff, including this album, Foolish Pride from 1993, sorry, is pretty good. Still available. So if you're into guitar, if you just want to collect classic guitarists, it's a good enough reason to get this album. Yeah, Tony McPhee, Foolish Pride. Good stuff. Okay, next up, let's go a bit punk. Let's go classic punk. Here we go. Anti Nowhere League, We Are the League, from 1982. There's the front. There's the back. WXYZ Records. There we go. Now, Anti Nowhere League, I know that most of you probably know this already, but classic London punk band, part of the second or 80s wave of punk. You know, the first wave, which was the Pistols and the Clash, etc. Second wave of punk, you have bands like Anti Nowhere League, The Exploited, Discharge, etc. One of the leaders of the second wave. Everything a good punk album should be, a good punk band should be. Loud, offensive, obnoxious, in your face, sweary, and a great deal of fun. And you know, that's the vibe you get off this album. The vibe I get off the Anti Nowhere League, full stop. But yeah, this album is pretty good. It's their classic. This has got nearly all their classic material on it. I just go through the track listing. We Are the League, their theme song, Animal, Woman, which is a rather twisted track, if you ask me, about domestic violence and marriage breakdown. Can't Stand Rock and Roll, The Man Who Invented It Was Big and Fat, He Died in the Toilet, Stupid Twat, something like that anyway. We Will Not Remember You, Snowman, which is about not a song to be sniffed at, if you know what I mean. Their cover of Streets of London, the Ralph McTell classic, 900 miles an hour. And the thing is, they play it straight. There's no taking the piss with the lyrics, no taking the piss with the vocal delivery. It just takes a song that's the Ralph McTell version's quite a heart-striking kind of, makes you feel. And this, but the way Anti Nowhere League play it, it makes you feel angry about the same subjects, which, well, job well done in my opinion. World War III, Nowhere Man, and then Wreck-a Nowhere, and then there's their classic Let's Break the Law as the closer. Everyone's a banger. You've got Animal, who's I think is the only surviving member of the band that's still going to this day, because they're still going. He's loud, he's nasty, he's obnoxious, he's offensive, he's in your face. You've got Magoo, who's one of the most messed up guitarists you'll come across. He's just, again, he's kind of, everything's kind of just thrashed the shit out of him, 900 miles an hour. Winston on bass, PJ on drums, tight as a duck's backside, making for one of the seminal punk releases. One that every good punk should have in their collection and every good music fan should at least be aware of. It's out on CD, it's never been deleted, probably been reissued a couple of times. I think there is a reissue with there is, because I've got the digital copy of it, with kind of bonus material and outtakes and B-sides and odd singles, etc. tagged on. But anyway, however what format you get it in, and like I said, I've also seen this in record fairs and that quite a regular on the vinyl. But whatever format you get it in, whatever way you listen, seminal punk album that all good punk should at least be aware of, if not own a copy of. Yeah, 1982. We Are the League by the Anti-Nowhere League. Okay, final CD of the day. Here we go. This is Dreamboat Annie by Heart from 1976. There's the front. There's the back. There's the disc. I don't think there's a great deal of info on this inlay card. No, just a track listing. Again, this is an early CD release. This particular copy on CD sounds a bit empty because it's not been properly mastered. I mentioned this the other week. You know, analog signal, you can't just take an analog signal and bang it out on the digital format. It sounds empty and sparse. You can't just take a digital format and bang it out on an analog thing like vinyl or tape. It sounds cluttered. But anyway, that aside, I do have this album on vinyl as well. I backed it up on CD because I found this in a charity shop for 30p or something like that a few years ago. So I thought, yeah, why not? And it's money for charity in it, so I grabbed it anyway. Heart. Now, probably best known for a load of really kind of flaccid, unimpressive kind of stadium rock albums they released in the 80s. Albums like Bad Animals, etc. However, before then, Heart had a couple of other incarnations, and this dates from their earliest, I think it's their second album, where they were actually quite an interesting kind of folk rock band. Hints of Zeppelin, hints of early Fleetwood Mac, hints of Fleetwood Mac, hints of Led Zeppelin kind of vibe to it. Yeah, quite folky in places as well. Then they went on to do a couple of albums that were quite hard rock, and then they just went crap. And I haven't really heard anything of interest of Heart since Passion Works back in about 1982. But anyway, this album is not my favourite of the early Heart albums. Little Queen, the debut album, Dog and Butterfly, I think are pretty good. This one's kind of up there-ish, but overall tends to be a bit forgettable because I'm looking at the track listing and there's White Lightning and Wine, yeah. The title cut, Dreamboat Annie, which is quite a nice kind of trippy kind of workout, but then the rest of it tends to be a bit forgettable, and I had to give it a listen to kind of remind myself of it. And when I gave it a listen, I was going, yeah, I can understand why I didn't kind of immediately jump on this album. And you know, because you pick up things like, you know, some of the later albums, you can read off what the track listings are, you know immediately what they're going to sound like, but this one's a bit meh. But anyway, it's not bad, it's well played. The Wilson sisters are on fine form. The rest of the band kind of are there with them. Mike Flicker done a good job on production, but you know, and it's competent. I do recommend that if you're in, you know, that you at least give some of the early Heart stuff a listen. It's not without merit, to say the least. Actually, it's quite good. This album's so-so, but you know, I'm comparing that with albums like Dog and Butterfly, which are absolutely storming. But yeah, it's better than a kick in the balls, and far better than Bad Animals. Yeah, Heart, Dreamboat Annie, 1976. Leads us on to the final vinyl. Ready? Here we go. An absolute classic from the German rockers, the Scorpions. This is Blackout, 1982. There's the front with its I can't remember who did the artwork, but it's a maybe it'll tell me on the inner sleeve. There's the front. There's the back. Pull this out. Scorpions rolling all over the floor. There. Just lyrics on there. Anything else? No. 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 Here, my Harvest records. No, and I can't see. It doesn't say at all who did the artwork. But anyway, I'll say that because the painting that that's taken from is has become a bit of a coarse celebrity in its own right, and I've seen it at a exhibition at the Tate Modern in London as part of a kind of special exhibition of kind of, you know, classic graphic art from the 1980s. But anyway, Scorpions, band out of Hanover, and just one of the great German rock acts. Started out being a bit krautrock in the early 70s, kind of developed through the late 70s into a kind of pretty good power metal band, and then 1978 they hit their stride, did a string of albums from Virgin Killer, then on to Animal Magnetism, Love Drive, this one, and then Love at First Sting, and then in my opinion lost the plot big time. After Love at First Sting, every Scorpion album I think slightly worse than the other one, and don't mention Wind of Change. Yes, I know it means a lot to a lot of Germans, and I can understand why because of the background to it, but for those of us outside Germany, it's just a bit of a sappy power ballad. But anyway, and a waste of a classic band, because after that became a massive hit in Germany, they kept writing more in that vein and forgetting the fact that the Scorpions were a heavy metal band. Rant over. But anyway, my favourite Scorpions albums are the ones that do the run from Love Drive through to Love at First Sting, and this one here is probably my favourite. Every track on here is a bit of a belter. The opening cut, Blackout, you know, lays fairly fast, heavy track. You've got other points on, high points on here. Can't Live Without You. Got, my opinion, got a fantastic riff. It's one that I drive my fellow band buddies Canadian Stashin absolutely mental with, because it's one I play through when I keep playing in sound check, and I say, "We have some rhythm guitar, please, mate." Yeah, I just love it. It's a track that one of the tracks I learned to play guitar while playing along to, and it's in my head, and it's just a cracking song. There's No One Like You, which is a kind of one of their kind of, is it ballady, but it's a good ballad rather than being a complete sappy one. Then you got Now, which is only about 2.5 minutes long. It's as fast as flip. It's a kind of real mosh pit inciting headbanger. Flip it over the other side, Dynamite, Arizona, which is a bit of a, it's instrumental. It's a bit of a kind of driving song. And then you got the epic closer, the anthem album, when the smoke is going down. Every track on here is brilliant. Klaus Maney's vocals is, yeah, he's got a distinctive voice. There is only ever one Klaus Maney, thank God. Herman Rarebell's drumming, Herman the German. He's got that kind of Keith Moon maul about him. You've got, you know, and the two guitarists of Rudolf Schenker and Michael Yabs. You know, one of the things that makes the Scorpions got a fairly unique sound is the fact they have intertwining rhythms with rhythm lines. The two rhythm guitars, when they're playing, tend to kind of work around each other than work together, and it kind of gives it a bit of a, it's more of an interesting vibe than two guys riffing away on the same thing, or one guy riffing away while the other guy solos. Just makes for a really interesting sound. Just a stunning album with nothing, in my opinion, anywhere to fault it. Just an all-time classic, and one I highly recommend that any decent metal fan or rock fan or just music fan, full stop, at least gives it a listen to. Yeah, Scorpions. Blackout, 1982. Was it 81? 82, sorry. Yeah, so that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I'm sorry, I keep saying, I meant to say this every week, but I keep forgetting. Unfortunately, I don't do kind of algorithms and that. I can't give you sample tracks or do needle drops while I'm recording these. But yeah, most of that stuff, if not all of the stuff this week, is going to have snippets online. Okay, some of it like the Stone Mask, you might have to do a bit of digging for, but you know, yeah, you're going to find elements of all those online if you give them a listen. If you want to say hit a like, that'll be great. Just helps the algorithm, makes this video more noticeable, just to spread the word about the music. I'm not after making money or fame, just want to talk about music to people. And the more people like, or if you leave a comment down there on YouTube, over there on Facebook, just leave a comment and tell us, you know, what do you think of these records? Are they any good? Yeah, have I got it wrong? Is Dreamboat Annie the best Heart album? I don't know. I'll be honest with your opinion. So, if you like what you hear, like and share. And until next week, peeps, I'm out of here. Yeah, the radio shows are down there and over there as well. So, until next week, peeps, loves you all, and I'm out of here. Bye.